Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Mario. Mario, welcome to the show.
Hey Ben, thanks for having me. Big time fan.
Before we start and dive into the subject, let's get to know you a little bit. So 2 questions we always ask. What do you love about content? What do you love about marketing? And then let us get to know you and your work experience.
I'm Mario, currently the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Overjet, a dental AI company, which maybe given the opportunity, we can chat a little bit more about what we do, but maybe a single answer to what I love about marketing and content, because while a lot goes into marketing, when I think about the companies that have the best marketing, the ones that are most successful, the ones that most people follow, they're probably following those people because they have great content. That's the thing that separates the great brands, the great companies from everyone else. It's you can be as tactical and as rigorous as anyone around the lead flows and the channel strategy and the tactics. But if you're not putting great content through that funnel, you are not going to drive the business results you want, and you are not going to be seen as a great marketer or a great marketing organization. So, I think my favorite part of all of this is figuring out what the right mix of content, the right creative ideas that are going to genuinely turn people into fans, genuinely solicit emotional reactions, and genuinely give people an experience with like, wow, I'm actually really glad I saw that video today. I'm really glad I went to that website. And so when I am able to, and it doesn't work every time, but when I'm able to put something out, or my team's able to put something out where people go like, wow, I'm really glad that I got to see that created real value for me today. There's nothing better as a marketer. So that's definitely my favorite part.
I love it. So today it's all super relevant to everything you talked about. What we're going to talk about is your branding and really how you position yourself in the marketplace. And really, if I'm completely honest, it's a very rare opportunity for a business to go into a space with zero competition. So how do you really start to brand a business? How do you think about that? And really, how can people start thinking about, how do I differentiate myself from all the other options out there on the market?
Yeah, really good question. It's almost, I like what you said about it's very rare, if ever, do you enter a space with no competition. I know there are examples of that, but earlier on in my career, I used to think it was a good thing to say, hey, I have no competitors. But the more that I think about it now, the fact that other companies are trying to solve the same problem as you is more validating product market fit, and almost like kind of raise an eyebrow and get a little concerned when I hear someone say, oh, we have no competitors. Everyone has a competitor, even if it's do nothing or status quo. But to more directly address your question, to me, it always starts with, what are you trying to achieve? And any executive, whether they're a marketer, a brand person, or any other role within a company, what you are charged with doing is tying your strategy, the work that you're doing, to what the company's trying to achieve. And in most all cases, certainly has been the case for the companies where I've had the good privilege to work and lead teams, is those companies are trying to achieve outsized returns and explosive growth within established industries. So when you understand and align on, hey, our objective, provide more value, grow faster, and be more effective than all of these other companies in our industry. And to do that, in some cases, we might have to unseat or come up head to head against companies that have much more historical equity, much more experience in the industry. That's a really, really difficult challenge. But if you can get everyone on your team to kind of just have that common sense agreement, like what I just said seems like the most easy thing for everyone to agree upon, it becomes so much easier to have that conversation about execution, about risk taking, about brand strategy. Because I very vividly remember, even before I joined Stored, which is a company where I was leading marketing for several years prior to Overjet, and our branding and content were the primary mechanisms through which it grew. I remember as early as my first interviews with the founders, I was very transparent with them and said, hey, it looks like you guys are trying to achieve outsized growth in a very competitive market. That's awesome. But I'm going to tell you up front that if that's your goal, there's no way that you could possibly achieve it by playing safe. There's no possible way that you can go and, win a competitive scenario against someone like DHL or UPS or Ryder or XPO by mimicking the marketing and branding that they are currently using. You are never going to beat a company that has decades of experience and nearly unlimited resources by playing their game. And so while I can't guarantee that us doing something different is going to magically solve all of our problems, I can guarantee beyond a shadow of a doubt that if we're not willing to take risks, if we're not willing to do things intentionally to be seen as different and more innovative than these companies, then we won't achieve the results that we want. And then once you can get that consensus, everyone understands like, oh, wait a minute. Yesterday, I was worried about all the things that could go wrong if we take risks, but actually now I understand the thing that I really should be worried about, what's going to happen if we don't take risks. And so it's kind of changing that mindset from being afraid of what happens if something goes wrong or people dislike you to being far more afraid of what happens if no one gives a crap about you and no one's paying attention to you. And I think the best companies and the best brand and marketing leaders are those that can create that internal consensus. And now everyone, so you have executive leadership, sales leadership, ops, product leadership, in some cases, even the board, everyone's seeing the same board game. Everyone says, all right, we need to make these investments. And then it's a heck of a lot easier to show them something that is unlike anything else out there in the industry and actually get some conviction behind executing on it. And so, if I were to distill this into a piece of advice for a marketer, it really is about aligning what you're doing to the business goals. It's having upfront alignment and, conviction with the rest of your leadership team. And ultimately, you should be way more afraid of no one loving you than you should be of anyone disliking you.
I love that. There's so much to unpack there. The ability to go in and convince everyone else to let you take these risks, the fear about just being like everyone else and how that's the real risk in this situation. So let's talk very tactical. I think a lot of marketers are excited about and they love the idea of, hey, I found a company, we can take risks, we need to take risks, we need to stand out. But then it's really just the head scratcher of, okay, what risks do we take? Where do we go? What do we do? How do we differentiate ourselves? What do we do in this space? What advice do you have for marketers saying, okay, I want to swing for the fences and figure this out? Where can they go for the inspiration to truly be unique, yet really align with their target audience and discover something that hasn't been done before?
Yeah. Gosh, if there was just like like a one sentence answer that solves all that problems, you and I would probably be unbelievably well off and then could quit our jobs forever. But I certainly can talk about how to approach that in a more, I'll say, I can give a philosophical answer than maybe an example of how we've done it. And two things come to mind for me. Number one is, at the end of the day, whatever you do still needs to tie back to your story and your audience. And so you can go out there and if I just went out and launched some sort of content that was just riddled with profanity and explicit images, it would get a lot of attention and people would be like talking about me, but it would drive no value. So, you have to, the first step is saying like, okay, what is the story that we really want to tell? And if you don't know that, then, you shouldn't be thinking about the fun and flair. Like, you need to get that audience, that story, and ultimately the base of that story is like, what does that audience care about? What's their pain and how are you solving it? So once you have that in place, the conversation becomes much more tactical of like, okay, we know what we want people to understand when they interact with us. We know what we want people to feel when they interact with us, but now we just need to figure out how do we do it. That's not just, building a web page or building an ebook or, making another like animated explainer video that looks like every other one one on the internet. And that's really where it's like, okay, how do you, looking out across everything that's out there, how do you do something that when someone lands on your site, interacts with your brand, they would never mistake with anything else out there? And there isn't just a one surefire way to do that. But a lot of marketing leaders, in my experience, are almost too afraid to admit this. Now, I get a lot of inspiration from individual small content creators. I get a lot of inspiration from the B2C world. I get a lot of inspiration around things that stop me when I'm scrolling through YouTube or scrolling through another social feed. That, the first piece of advice I give people is, if you're not unbelievably excited about what you're doing and you're paid to be excited about it, there's no chance that anyone else is going to be excited about doing that. And to maybe make all of this just a little bit more tangible, would it make sense to want me to share kind of an example of how
I'd love to hear that. All the tangible opportunities we can get, we'll take it.
So what we did with Stored, and I'll very briefly explain the high level of the company. So Stored is a supply chain company. It's a convergence of the physical logistics operations that any sort of brand, whether they're a B2B or B2C brand, need to run their supply chain, coupled with a single piece of integrated technology that allows you to optimize and view that entire experience from one place. And while most listeners may not be intimately familiar with the supply chain space, suffice to say there's a lot of companies that do physical logistics, a lot of companies that have some form of supply chain software. In fact, there's many different categories of supply chain software. And the core secret sauce of Stored was not in any one piece of what we did. It was the classic, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts story, in that the problem for brands was not that they couldn't get all these services. I could go out and today, if I wanted to start a direct-to-consumer brand, I could get warehousing, I could get transportation, I can get a warehouse management software, I can get an order management software, I can get a Shopify instance to run my store out of. I can get all of these things. So access to the tools you need isn't the problem. The problem is that you have to piece together all of these disparate tools, and they're not built to work together. Even if they're individually great, you end up with your supply chain being a bunch of different people doing each individual physical process, and then a bunch of different individual softwares. And in some cases, the software is, hey, we're going to email you a spreadsheet for each piece that you're trying to manually piece together. And then you hear people say, oh, supply chain's effed up. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why supply chain's effed up. So the real secret sauce of Stored is not trying to reinvent the wheel of how to run a warehouse. It is, how do we reinvent the way that people look at their supply chain and provide that in an integrated experience? So that's the what and the why and the pain. So it's like, how do you go about expressing this? And, for us, it was this mix of, hey, this is this really abstract concept, but it is rooted at surface level, simple, tangible, real world processes. So the way that we ended up attacking this was we actually built this whole 3D world with ports and warehouses and retail stores and apartment buildings and distribution centers and suburbs, and so when you would visit the site or visit several of our landing pages, you would see this whole world that is interoperable working. You're seeing product coming in from the port. You're seeing that product being brought through warehouses. You've seen the warehouses shipping those out and smaller parcel cars being delivered. You see B2B stores being stocked. You see supermarkets being frequented. And in the middle of this entire supply chain city, so to speak, is this huge control tower, almost like a Eye of Sauron type of situation with like a revolving Stored logo that you can see is controlling and manipulating that entire experience. And as you would scroll through this interactive experience on the site, you would see each of these individual pieces, how they fit together, and exactly what Stored is able to do for you in those individual pieces. And so it's taking something that's, candidly very abstract, but making it so tangible. And then the next thing was like, okay, we have this beautiful web experience, which if you want to see it, you can go to stored.com/city is where that experience lives today, to the best of my knowledge. But okay, we have this beautiful site experience, but we still need to get people to this site. And I just remember like any good marketer, did a bunch of, user interviews and talked to a bunch of people in the process of building this. And not a single person I talked to wasn't unbelievably stressed and unbelievably almost disappointed with the state of their supply chain. And this was kind of during the heights of COVID too. So much so that I would be on customer or prospect calls and they would say, like, my supply chain is F, like just blurting that out. And so when we launched this whole brand experience, launched a brand video showing off this experience where the first line that rolls through is like, hey, listen up, supply chains are F. And then it's stored un-effing supply chains since 2015. Obviously, the video itself was, story for another time, but, had custom music, beautiful visuals, very catchy. I still watch it from time to time to pump myself up. But the combination of telling the right story, telling it in a way that's interesting and engaging, and having mechanisms in place to actually get people there to pay attention. And, the feedback we got from the market was like, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you did that. But I remember someone even commented, like, finally, there's a vendor in this space that is willing to talk about supply chain the way that we all think about supply chain.
I love that. I love that. Well, this is really tactical, good advice. I love the examples. I love this concept of really standing out, how to get the rest of the business online with it, how to figure out these creative ideas. I feel like you said we could go on for hours, but to keep these episodes short and sweet and let people consume them on the go, we're going to have to call it good today. But Mario, if anyone wants to reach out and connect with you online, how and where can they find you?
Yeah, great question. Ironically, for a marketer, I'm a bit dormant on social media. So the only place you're going to find me is LinkedIn. I'm just Mario Paganini on LinkedIn. You'll recognize me because I got a Mario hat and a mustache in my profile picture. Feel free to reach out to me directly or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Love it. Well, Mario, again, thank you so much for the insights and the time today.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.